Well, a very good morning to you. Thank you so much for joining us. It is indeed the 11th of October 2022. I hope you have enjoyed this extended weekend all the way from Friday until yesterday on Monday. You're watching M Live. My name is Zainab Ismail. We'll be taking a look, of course, at what's been happening in the world here in Kenya, politically as well as outside the country. Where has the president been? We'll be taking a look at those, as well as what's in the dailies and some of our stories that will be informing our conversation today and the next few days as well. Let's begin with those stories. Now, governance experts are raising fresh questions over the government's plan to revive the Aror and that's the controversial Aror and Kimorer dams following the red claims, of course, flags that were raised, and of course the claims by Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua that the projects were stopped by the previous administration for political reasons. NTV's Sydney Chazima has more details on this particular report. Let's take a look at that.
For his straight talk, the DP may have walked into a whole new storm when he made the declaration over the two controversial dam projects.
Hata hii maneno yote ya kusimamisha maendeleo hapa Aror na Kimorer ilikuwa ni siasa, ati ionekane William Ruto hasaidii watu ya nyumbani ndio mchukie yeye.
And now, governance experts are raising the red flag.
There was corruption, but what appears to have happened around this weaponization of the war on corruption is there were two arms, there were two executives in the Jubilee administration, the executive of Uhuru Kenyatta and William Ruto, and it seems there was some political infighting whose corruption is getting exposed.
The two dams whose construction was first mooted as early as 1986 have gone through many starts and stops without anything ever being built on the ground. In 2019, the projects were brought to a screeching halt by the then President Uhuru Kenyatta, who said in a statement that Kimorer was neither technically nor financially viable, a declaration that was sharply criticized by the then Deputy President William Ruto, who has since succeeded Uhuru as president.
Sahi wanatuambia ya kwamba sijui dam fulani ati pesa imeibiwa. Hiyo pia ni porojo na uongo. Kwani wanafikiri tutaamini hao? Kwani sisi ni wajinga kiasi gani?
Approximately 900 families, which were promised about 6 billion shillings as compensation for land to pave way for the project, have also been waiting in the wings.
Kutoka mlima huko mpaka chini, mnataka kunyanyasa sisi kwa nini bwana?
Nataka serikali ishughulikie wale wakaaji haraka ili kampuni iendelee.
But more questions remain even as the government seeks to restart the dams.
Budgeted corruption is a case for Kenyans.
At the height of the controversy, the task force put together by then President Uhuru Kenyatta revealed that both projects had been highly overpriced. The Aror Dam in Marakwet West was to cost a whopping 38 billion shillings, while the Kimorer Dam in Keio South was estimated to cost 28 billion. After a review, Aror Dam was to be implemented at a reduced cost of 15.4 billion shillings, but the Kimorer project was brought to a halt after the task force deemed it unfeasible. Former Treasury CS Henry Rotich is fighting off charges in court over the alleged loss of at least 55.8 billion shillings in the Kimorer and Aror dams.
The Kenya Kwanza team lied to Kenyans when they said they will not weaponize corruption, because what they are now doing is politicizing a case of budgeted corruption to exonerate the masterminds.
The government appears to be making good on its campaign promise to bring back the dams, but remains unclear on how it intends to resolve the corruption cloud hanging over the projects.
There must be an audit of what went wrong because money was expended. We are at risk of losing more money if we do not seal the loopholes that enabled the corruption to take place. We are also at risk of losing those who benefited from corruption under the previous administration. At no point did Kenyans say we have granted an amnesty to past corruption.
Sydney Chazima, NTV.
All right, and we'll certainly be touching on that particular issue there. And detectives from the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission have completed a 4-day search operation in various premises and offices linked to several Siaya County officials accused of emptying coffers by siphoning 872 million shillings immediately after the 2022 general election. The Commission now says it is analyzing information gathered to ascertain the culpability of individuals and a probe and possible asset recovery.
A team of detectives from the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission have been conducting searches in various premises and offices of some Siaya County officials since Friday, seizing what it calls crucial documents and equipment in 3 separate investigations on allegations of corrupt conduct, abuse of office and embezzlement of public funds totaling to 872 million shillings within 12 days after the just concluded election in August. On allegations of abuse of office and fraudulent acquisition of public funds amounting to 400 million, it is claimed that senior county officials made suspicious withdrawals within 12 days during the August elections in total disregard of moratorium, stopping procurement, payment of allowances and pending bills by new governor. A second investigation again on abuse of office and fraudulent acquisition of public funds amounting to 72 million in installation and equipping of an intensive care unit at Siaya Referral Hospital, whereby it is reported that funds were disbursed when the hospital opened an ICU facility, but no equipment was purchased. Instead, the county government installed ventilators that had been earlier donated by Kijabe Hospital. Investigation number 3 centers on fraudulent acquisition of 400 million in the construction of ultra-modern Siaya Stadium, whereby it is alleged that after construction work was awarded to the contractor, the former governor irregularly redesigned the stadium and varied the initial cost, leading to a loss of public funds amounting to 400 million. EACC has shared images of some of the properties belonging to one of the public officers under probe, who is an impressed accountant at the Siaya County government. And the commission is in the process of scrutinizing critical documents, electronic and other relevant material that will assist in the ongoing investigations to ascertain culpability of some individuals and possible asset recovery. Duncan Haemba, NTV.
And the DCI has published the qualifications of the 10 candidates ahead of Tuesday's interviews, which is today, for the Director of Criminal Investigations position. The National Police Service Commission's interviews, which will take place tomorrow, will be one of the steps in determining who will take over as DCI. Gina Kirori has more. Report in just a moment, and of course that will be quite interesting to see what will happen. Of course, those interviews are taking place from today, and the person who will be taking over from the former DCI boss George Kinoti. So that will be very interesting. All right, now away from that, this is a special report that aired yesterday, and of course it's one of a lot of interest as well. Now, with the investigative report involving a cartel of health officials and crooked individuals who've created a lucrative business out of the sale of children, NTV has uncovered the racket that involves the deals being finalized before the babies are born, with prices ranging from anything between 150,000 shillings to 1 million shillings. Just what makes this business so easy to do, and what drives mothers in selling their precious bundles of joy? NTV's Auko Kusa begins our news coverage. We'll continue our news coverage on this special report, Sold Unborn.
Meet Stephen Odhiambo, the mastermind. And then there is Nelson Mandela, the clinical officer. This daring duo is the face behind a child-selling racket at Ahero County Hospital in the county of Kisumu. After receiving a tip-off from an anonymous caller about the criminal syndicate, I quickly assembled a small team to draw a plan of how to ascertain the claim. The plan would involve a phony desperate couple looking to buy a newborn baby. The sellers swallowed the bait, hook, line and sinker. In less than a week, we managed to fix a meeting between the baby sellers and the fake couple.
Yeah.
Posting as well-moneyed embassy employees based in Nairobi, the couple met the sellers at a hotel in Ahero Township.
Mko sawa lakini? Mko salama. Kwa majina mimi naitwa Nelson Mandela. Mimi ni clinical officer nafanya hapo kwa county. Nafanya hapo county hospital. Okay. Okay. Thank you.
But we later established that Stephen dropped out of what was then known as the International School of Medicine and Applied Technology in Kisumu in 2015, where he was pursuing a diploma course in clinical medicine. He was doing his second year at the time. It is not clear if he pursued any other medical studies, but he has been eking out a living, carrying out a variety of activities at a local clinic located within Ahero Township, where his services were terminated 2 months ago. At the meeting, Stephen and Mandela reveal how the baby selling business idea was conceived.
So they always tell us, kwanza wanakujanga wanataka kuboard. So kwa hiyo engagement tunakuja na open up na kwambia kama kuna mahali anaweza mpeleka. So hapo ndio inaanzia, unasikia mtu anataka mtu. Pia unaona tunaona watu pia wako infertility. So pia wana open up wanasema kama kuna wale wenye wanazaa na watatu watoto.
Mandela would further disclose that so far they have managed to safely deliver 2 newborn babies to different clients without any hiccups.
The other 2 clients, how smooth has it been? Given how smooth did it go? Hakujakuwa na any issue. Ilikuwa tu hivyo na wakachukua wakaenda. Walichukulia kwa hosi.
Na au mliwapea na ngapi? Mliwapea na ngapi? Jana tuliwapea na 800. Jana ilikuwa ni 1 million.
Even though the couple had requested that the mother of the child to be sold be present during the discussion, the daring duo walked into the meeting without the woman.
So because we are really very rich, and the lady we have, she's around, and for the best purpose, I think if you see her, it will be okay. Yeah, very nice. Because we are the ones who are going to handle this, the end. Because she's calm, which means that anytime she can leave. Yeah, any time in the future. Then there's a way how we can induce it tomorrow and today. Yeah, so that you get it as soon as possible.
Even so, the sellers later bowed to pressure from the would-be buyers and placed a call to the woman. Emilia Cheng would later turn up in the company of a friend she claims was the link between her and the men selling her unborn child.
Ulikuwa unahitaji pesa ngapi? Yeah. Wamesema
hiyo sasa yeye hawezi sema. Sasa hiyo mlikuwa unasema na hawa. Sisi hiyo ilikuwa hiyo ulikuwa unawaambia na hawa ama huyu. Sisi tuliambiwa tule tujuane. Ndio mtaka kufanya kitu. Ni kama broker sasa tuseme nataka kuuza hii soda. Inabidi ni wewe na
ilikuwa Saturday.
Although the sellers had quoted 1 million shillings if the baby turned out to be a boy, and 800,000 shillings in the case of a girl, Emily had apparently been told a different figure.
So family waliniambia tunatoa 150 watanipea 100.
150,000.
Walinipa 100 uchukue 50. Hapo ndio sasa walikuwa wamenificha. Sasa unajua singekuwa open kwa uliona ameniambia hivi.
So wamekwambia tulikuwa tunatoa 150,000.
Nilikuwa na 150.
Alikuwa anakupea
100. Sasa mimi unajua tulikuwa tunakubali hiyo shida iko na.
Wametuambia mvulana ni 1 million na msichana ni 850. So wewe pia si wewe mtoto unauza. Unajifungua hivi unatupea mtoto. Na pesa sasa pesa ni gani? Sasa nyinyi ndio mjue, lakini wasijue tumekwambia hiyo.
Sasa that time nilikuwa nataka hiyo siku mnachukua mtoto kama mnapeana hiyo pesa ni kwa wewe.
Another untruth came in the form of the reason why Emily wanted to dispose her unborn child.
She had plans to travel. It's soon, I think by next month, early next month. She's supposed to go to Dubai, somewhere in the Middle East, to look for a job.
So like amesha process visa.
Yeah, applied already.
But the mother of 3 had a contrary explanation.
Unataka kwenda ngambo?
I think kama ngambo naenda ni ile situation ni nataka tu financial nijue venye hao watu wata survive. Sina mtu kunisaidia. Mimi ni mtu mmoja ya kwetu. Na sina parent.
So walisema tutatoa 150, wewe anakuletea 100.
Sasa mimi walikuwa nataka wanipe 100 atiwachukue hiyo. Sasa hapo ndio walikuwa wamenificha hata huyu msichana mwingine ajui.
Sasa wewe pia jifanye ujui hiyo, sawa? But tutaona vile tutakufanya.
Sawa, asante.
Jioni njema.
Sawa.
According to Emily's friend, demand for newborn babies is on the rise here in Ahero.
Ndio kuna mtu angechukua huyo mtoto hapa, anataka tu hapa karibu na posta. Emily hataki kuona huyo mtoto, anataka tu yeye akimaliza. Watu wachukue tu mtoto, hataki kuona huyo mtu aende na huyo mtoto.
Sasa mnakupata.
Tungepatia mtu hapa pia alikuwa anataka. Na huyo pia ni best wangu. Sasa anasema tu atakachukua kwa akiona huyo mtoto wake.
The thing is hiyo sasa.
Tuseme ni jifungue ni breast. Itakuwa ile feeling ya mama. Sasa tuseme tu
ni hataki.
Tulikuwa tu kama vile unaweza mama akupe mtoto abaki. Si hata survive. Kwa hiyo tena ni breastfeed. Si itakuwa na time tena uko na feeling ya mtoto atakuwa shavuruta. Sasa sikusopa itakuwa ngumu. Fikisha breastfeed.
Itakuwa umesha kuwa na bonding fulani hapo. Na kuchapa bromocriptine. Maziwa inakauka.
Kuna dawa ya kukausha.
Utafanya aje? Na mega dawa. Inaitwa bromocriptine. Hiyo inasaidia nini? Inapoteza maziwa. Hiyo lacto inaitwa nini? Hiyo hormone ya kunini ya kutoa maziwa inapotea, inarudi chini, so maziwa itoke. Okay.
Before the meeting concluded, the sellers told the couple that they will ensure that Emily delivers safely at Ahero County Hospital and that all the necessary documents will be issued to them.
Mnakuja tu hapo hospitali. Mtu anatoka tu chukua hiyo kitu hospitali. Mnakuja tu mnachukua mtoto vizuri kama wazazi. Hospitali.
Hapo Ahero.
Hapo Ahero? Hapo sub county hospital.
He says it's on the highway.
I think the Australian nimeiona hapo kando ya barabara. Nimeiona hapo kando ya barabara. We are going to do it there. So, hapo ndani ya Ahero sub county hospital akisha deliver, we just come as relatives. Just come as relatives.
Like an aunt.
Yeah, then we decide the baby with you. Yeah. Okay. Together with the what do you call it? The birth notification. Kila kitu ni. Haya. Tunashukuru. Tunaongea.
However, 5 days later when Stephen contacted the couple, he had a different story. Emily was no longer in the deal. She had been replaced with someone else.
Thank you so much. Now. Hey.
2 days after the call, the sellers met the buyers again. Only that this time around, the meeting happened at Ahero County Hospital, where the new woman had just delivered a bouncing baby girl.
Issue is that about financial issues, kuna venye tumeongea na yeye. Unajua ukienda uanze kuongea
we are not doing that. We are not doing that. Sisi, we are dealing with all of us together.
It is at this juncture that the real reason for discharging Emily from the deal would surface.
Unajua alikuwa na NHIF, but ni mtu ali break up na
bwana.
So bwana yake ndio contribute. So it's as if we are going to clear for her.
Are you going to pay that?
Lazima tumlipia.
Because itabidi mlipie, because mimi siwezi kuvuruga mzigo wangu vile nimeweka. Mtaona vile mnafanya. Mimi mnaweza kusort out hapa after ku receive mzigo yenu.
Leading the way, the two men take their clients to the maternity ward where Rosalind Wangui is waiting together with another woman she introduces as a friend.
Sina photocopy. Original letter. Original number, obvious, I guess what I'm an oldie.
It takes Mandela less than 15 minutes to complete the discharge process.
This is the first deal we are doing. This is the first time. We've done them. This is the fourth.
This is the fourth.
The fourth one. We've read them.
Without hesitating, the mother of the one-day-old baby hands over her bundle of joy, whom she would later describe as bundle of sorrow, to her new parents. First phase of the deal closed, it is time to move to the next, the money. But owing to the sensitivity of handling a newborn baby, at this stage we had to involve the local police. By this time, the team of plainclothes officers were already on hand to get the suspects and their precious consignment.
It's all about the money. Yeah.
What is it?
It's all about the money.
I mean, God gifted you with a baby. Why would you dispose the baby in such a way?
So it would have been better if I aborted, or?
No. Given an up for adoption. Legally.
Yeah.
I didn't want to have bonds with the kid.
Because in this...
Oh, you didn't want to have bonds with
Yeah.
In this, there is an expected financial gain.
It wasn't about the money.
But were you promised any money?
Did you see me get any money?
Were you promised?
I would even give it for free.
Were you promised any money? That's the question.
I wanted the kid to have a better life somewhere else, away from me. Because you don't know what I go through.
But Rosalind's endless denials of intention to terminate her pregnancy would soon be put to doubt by Stephen's defense.
She wanted to dispose of it. I told her, no. There's no need to dispose the baby, but there's a friend whom we can give. There's no need to rather to abort it. It's better we give the other guy to maintain the life.
So my question is, were you expecting some payment today?
Some payment?
In exchange for the baby?
Due to my concern.
In exchange for the baby?
Just for the support to the mother. For the support to the mother.
How much?
I think you've discussed it. You've already told us about 800.
Oh, that's the money you were expecting today?
Not I was expecting. He told us that he could support, and he was ready and really willing to support the mother, but not me, or rather not my brother.
Mandela would attempt to extricate himself from the scheme by suggesting that he only came in to assist his friend Stephen to discharge Rosaline from the hospital. Police say the suspects will be arraigned once investigations are complete. Ouko Kusa, NTV.
Well, an extremely shocking and heartbreaking report there by Ouko Kusa. We certainly hope something will be done with regard to the same. Really heartbreaking. All right, let's now get to the matter of the day. And of course, in the dailies, before that, allow me to introduce in the studio Dunstan Omari, lawyer and political analyst. Very good morning. Karibu sana after quite a long time.
We are back.
Indeed. We also do have Ishmael Nyaribo, lawyer and political analyst as well. Karibu sana Ishmael. And Dismas Mokua, political risk analyst. Thank you so much for joining us, Dismas, this morning. Let's begin with what's at the front pages of the Daily Nation. This is what we have. Pay cuts loom in Ruto budget plan. Non-salary benefits such as allowances, including entertainment and travel, and various non-essential expenditures will be reviewed for the CHOP starting this morning as the Treasury moves to effect President Ruto's directive to save the 300 billion from this year's budget. That's on pages 6 and 7. Some of the leading non-essential spenders of 2021-2022, we have some there, the agency. Travel, 20.1 billion. You have the National Assembly, the Parliamentary Service Commission, IBC, Interior, and the Presidency. You also have, in terms of hospitality, about 6.26 billion shillings, which is quite a high spending. Training from the TSC, Interior, Ministry of Health, IBC, Parliamentary Joint Services, amounting to about 3.89 billion. You have contracting professional services, 12.9 billion shillings from some of the state agencies there. We'll get into this in just a moment. However, there is a bit of, we don't seem to have a consensus on a particular issue because we've had a long holiday and this is what we have. All right. So is it Utamaduni Day or Huduma Day? We see others saying Utamaduni Day, others saying Huduma Day. High Court judge reinstated October 10th, previously celebrated as Moi Day, as a public day in 2017. However, we are seeing, some saying Happy Utamaduni Day, Happy Huduma Day. Dismas, what is it? I mean, which is which?
Well, nobody seems to know that it should appear that it's a Huduma Day.
Is it?
Yeah, because all I remember is that this was a special day for retired President Daniel Toroitich Arap Moi when it was Moi Day then. And after getting a new constitution, the drafters started to scrap off naming any of these days after a personality.
Right.
So then it became, in my understanding,
right,
Huduma Day.
It's Huduma Day.
Yeah, but whatever it is, they say a rose by any other name smells just nice.
So it's fine.
It's a day to remember.
As long as it's a public holiday, all right. So we stick to that. All right, Ishmael. Any difference for you, or it doesn't make any difference?
I don't know actually why we keep the day but do not have any function on the day. And if you talk about Huduma, even if you talk about Utamaduni cultural or Huduma service, I think there should be something important for Kenyans. I mean, we have got a lot of people, especially our military, which works very much hard outside the country to protect us. This Huduma should have some special activities to recognize such service, I think so.
Right.
But just having it a dull day when the president goes out to Uganda and Tanzania to celebrate and we are having a great, service day, I think should be reviewed by Kenyans. So we should have something tangible to do on this day.
Because it seems that there's some sort of confusion here. What are we really celebrating? Really, Kenyans don't know. It doesn't make sense to them.
I really do not understand the importance of this day, considering that Kenya has turned into a national holiday country where we have so many holidays.
Do we really?
There are very many. Let me tell you, a working country needs working days. If we have so many days doing nothing, yesterday the amount of revenue that got lost, we never went to court. Most of the people didn't work. So really, how does government want to get revenue? How do individuals want to grow financially and economically if they have more days to relax. I'll give you, for example, where I come from in Kisii, Friday has been turned into a Kisii Barrio Day. No work is done. Students are not going to school. That is a day that is supposed to be for working. Monday equally has been turned into a barrio day. So my people in the village have only 4 days working. So how do you expect to compete with others nationally? How does Kenya expect to compete globally if we have so many days that people are not working? So I think the judge made a mistake, and we should go to court and review this order, because already the day had died. Somebody went to court in Machakos and challenged this decision, and the court upheld that that day must be preserved. For what purpose?
All right. And Dunstan, I suspect many Kenyans would not be happy with what you're saying by asking that. But this is what we have on the second page of the Daily Nation. Mobile phone led police to woman's suspected killer. Neighbors say they found the victims with a rope around the neck. That's a report there by Stanley Ngodo, talking about Matindo, a worker at the farm in Gong, who suspected to have strangled his employer. The full report there on the second page of the Daily Nation. And just trying to get to the main report here, which is right at the very front. Okay, not that, but this is another story here. So, Kalonzo allies under probe in Parliament nomination tussle. Now, the row pits the former Vice President's party against Mombasa businessman Abubakar Ahmed Talib. Now, a raging dispute over the, let me get that, is it, yes, over Kalonzo Musyoka's Wiper Democratic Movement Party's nominee to the National Assembly is now under police investigation after officials allegedly committed perjury to justify changing party lists submitted to the electoral agency. The row pits Wiper against Mombasa businessman Abubakar Ahmed, who was sworn in as the party's nominee on the 13th of Parliament on Thursday, with a case seeking to reverse his nomination dragging on in court. Now, because of the case, the nominee was left out as MPs were sworn in on the 8th of September, when the House subsequently elected Moses Wetangula as Speaker. And of course, the DCI has summoned 5 top Wiper officials for questioning of allegations of the false swearing in and forgery of documents regarding the case that the party had presented to Political Parties Disputes Tribunal, Dismas. And what you think of this particular report?
Well, that opens a Pandora's box, and we've said times above number that party nominations have given democracy a wide berth. In fact, there are very few political parties in Kenya that conduct free, fair, and credible party primaries, and there are very few that present nominations to the either Senate, National Assembly, and county assemblies on merit. So there's an acute shortage of merit. There's a deficit of meritocracy in those nominations, and I think this is a very good case, so that in future, as party leaders plan to conduct party primaries, as they make their nominations, they ensure that the process is anchored on meritocracy and it's transparent. Because many times party members complain that people who make it to the list, they don't make it to the list because they've supported the party maybe ideologically. Most of the time, it's because they've given, or rather they are donors. And a number of accusations that have not been verified is that they tend to have some sort of relationships with the party rank. That meritocracy is never considered for this position. So in my view, this is a very good case, so that in future, we may even get orders so that everything is very transparent, because there's a lot of opaqueness in this process.
Right. Ishmael, you're laughing.
You know, I remember here the Supreme Court judgment where, you know, the judges found, you know, certain activities by litigants, lawyers, to have been fraudulent. I don't know whether they picked it from that for inspiration to file this case, but in my humble view, this is just politics. I think, you know, people campaigned and politics is over. I think this is just trying to destabilize Wiper, because I think Wiper, you know, now after the last elections, I think Kalonzo Musyoka is, you know, strongly trying to mold himself into the next big person we look at in 2027. I am reading mischief in terms of coming all the way now, you know. But anyway, it's in the court. It will be in the court, so
Right.
let's hope that
Right.
we can see what it develops.
Dunstan, are you reading politics there as well?
Yeah, quite a lot of politics, because I'll tell you for free that I have filed matters in this political parties tribunal in all parties, from Azimio, from UDA, from Ford Kenya. The party lists, people who are given those slots are not the people who qualify under the Act. And very many, we nullified very many of them. Others sneaked in, they were sworn in. There are very many election petitions for the MCAs that we have filed in court to nullify them, because people's girlfriends, you'll get somebody who comes from Nyeri being a boyfriend, being nominated as an MCA in Kwale.
Right.
This person doesn't even know the land where Kwale is. Or somebody has been nominated in Nyamira.
So a lot of mischief there.
It is the political mischief, and quite a number of the MCA's petitions that are going to be, very many people who are sworn in, theirs are going to be nullified. Number two, there were quite a number that were stopped at the IBC tribunal, at the political parties tribunal, at all these shenanigans we are saying. But the question is, what is of interest is in the involvement of the DCI. The DCI was never involved when the Supreme Court allegedly there were evidence of fraud. The DCI office were told, stay in Kiambu Road. Now we are saying the DCI, not under Kinoti, a new DCI that was told, stay elsewhere in Kiambu Road. Now they are here chasing people. We read a lot of political mischief in getting this position. Remember, there is competition of who has more members of parliament. Already, this seat, nobody has been sworn in. So we think that the involvement of the DCI is pure politics.
All right. Let's just move on. All right, from there, still on the Daily Nation. Moving forward, City Hall in a bind after insurance shocker. The county government will have to float the tender afresh and invite bidders to go through the NHIF. And this is with regards to the Nairobi City County government workers who have been left without a comprehensive medical insurance after an underwriter pulled out of the multi-million shilling deal. That's on the page 5 of the Daily Nation. Moving forward, I don't know if you want to speak something about that. But moving forward, anxiety as Treasury kicks off 300 billion budget cuts. Now, the President ordered the cuts as a way of reducing government borrowing for recurrent expenditure. I begin with Dismas. Is this sustainable? Will this work?
That is not only sustainable, but it's also good news. Because the previous administration, the President Kenyatta administration, was accused of fiscal indiscipline. But President Ruto has come and said that I've got a new strategy, that we must maintain fiscal discipline. And what the Bretton Woods institutions, international partners, and other stakeholders expect from Kenya is clarity and predictability on our fiscal strategy. And for President Ruto to say that we need to have a surplus, and then I'm going to cut 3 billion, is a step in the right direction. But my wish is that the Kenya Kwanza administration would take it to the next level. And the next level would be, we consider going to zero-based budgeting, so that every principal secretary creates a budget from scratch. Because the obtaining situation today is incremental budgeting. That if you had 10 million during one financial year, then the next year you are given 15, it keeps on increasing. Or we can even adopt activity-based costing, so that we start sweating the Kenyan shilling. For instance, when you're talking about these budgets for travel, budgets for hospitality, budgets for flowers, the principal secretary should be able to explain what is the return on investment when you have these huge budgets for flowers, for travel, for hospitality. What exactly does it go for? Because you see, one of the principal obligations of a principal secretary is to be an accounting officer. So you should account for the resources you have in your docket. So in my view, we should consider that zero-based budgeting or activity-based costing, and run away from incremental budgeting. And then another thing that the Kenya Kwanza administration needs to look at with a lot of interest is this public debt. At some stage, there was a proposal to have a public debt management authority, which would also look at this issue of public debt. Because in the past, again, public debt has been shrouded in mystery. Majority of Kenyans don't know what it's contained in, because the public servants of rank at the National Treasury have got a phobia. They don't want to release the numbers. Now, if you go back to, or rather, if you create a public debt management authority, then there's going to be transparency in the process, and I think that is long overdue.
All right. And I mean, so we have a select number of state departments there. This is just a couple of them. And an analysis of the state's recurrent spending priorities shows that about 10 ministries and agencies are incurring the bulk of the non-essential expenditures, mainly travel, entertainment, training, renting. And another thing I've seen here is by the SRC. Now, data by the SRC shows that civil servants are paid 247 different allowances, which account for 48% of the total wage bill.
Yeah, you know, we spoke about this in your show again, I think last 2 weeks.
Right.
This is not, I think people must understand, the families of, you know, civil servants and friends should understand, this is not salary cut. This is, like you said, you know, money, you know, spent for, you know, so the president is just saying, instead of asking for 7 bottles of water in the office, just maintain 3 and buy the rest for yourself. I mean, the doctor says we drink a lot of water. It doesn't mean that the ministry should buy you a lot of water. So if we drink water, we don't, the government is not buying for us.
So this is extremely essential.
This is, in fact, I just counted when we were just talking here. It's like 40 billion will actually be recovered. So this is an important step by the head of state. But I hope, like my colleague mentioned earlier, it is not any form of weaponization again coming up. I hope that these 40 billion can be taken back to the exchequer, to the revenue, and committed to now the you know, Hustler manifesto.
The fund, yes.
I am the only odd person here from my 2 colleagues because they have never worked for government. I've worked for government for more than 20 years. This is the most draconian action by government. Civil servants and peanuts.
How so?
I'll tell you for free, entry of non-graduates. They enter job group C, which is 4,500 shillings. That is a married man, a married woman who needs to pay rent. Now we are saying we are removing what the allowances that have been keeping civil servants work. There was a time, and this came through the structural adjustment programs, when the policy document changed that all meetings of government to be held in schools or public institutions. This is where we are going to. The hotel industry collapsed because the conferences were not there. When we talk about training, for example, the judiciary, where we have a big interest, in hospitality, the judiciary is going to lose 426 million. In training, the judiciary, in training in contract professional services, the judiciary is going to lose 63 million shillings. And all these are core issues. Let me tell you, the pay in civil service is a dog's pay. The only reason why people stay in public service is the allowances that they get, what is called per diem, what is called entertainment allowance, what is called traveling allowance.
But Wakili, are these allowances necessary at a time when Kenyans are facing a complete upheaval when it comes to the economic situation right now?
Let me tell you, and this thing is going to hit a dead end. You cannot reduce an entitlement, cash entitlement, that already is in the terms of service. Because the labor court, this thing is going to court. The president is doing politics that he has ordered this. It's not the first time. We, for example, last week, I went to represent, for example, the matter that you aired, NTV, the police graduates. A salary and allowance that they were used to be given was deducted. The court said it is irrational. You cannot, if I was employed and I did an interview and the terms of the advert were, I'll get 262 types of allowances, you cannot. You've seen what is happening in Parliament. The International Labour Organization and the Conventions on Labour will not allow this. I wish the president all the best, but I know it will hit a dead end. One, this is going now to be an upshot of corruption. When civil servants will not get their fare, they used to go home using their fare, we are now going to get serious corruption within the bureaucracy because these people must pay rent. How do you tell somebody who has been paying rent of 50,000 shillings, now the rent has gone, he must leave?
I think my colleague is misunderstanding. You'll come back if you don't.
All right, then let's hear from Dismas after Ishmael. Yes. Yeah. Yes, you can finish.
Yes.
Wakili.
I think my colleague, I think when you talk about non-essential services, that is debatable, and I think because he's been in government, he can...
I have been.
Yeah, he can do this kind of report and even help the ministries to identify what is non-essential. I don't think allowance for rent is non-essential. And I don't think this is what this means. But if it means that, then I agree with him. But I don't think that's what it means. What this means...
We're not talking about
I mean, you are going to Germany on a trip.
Yes.
And you're being given $500,000 to keep in your pocket. Are you seeing? Right. So that is what is non-essential, because the line ministry can pay your ticket, can pay your... The usual way we are given, tickets to Mombasa, and you are accommodated, you eat the whole day, then you come back. Okay. On top of that, you are being given $500,000. I think non-essential must be understood in the context of wastage, not in the context of essential items like your rent, which is actually part of what the part of service contract.
And I know Dismas, you want to just add on to that, but right, we really have to take a break. When we come back, just hold on to that. We'll come back with that in just a moment. This is AM Live. Talk to us. The hashtag we're using this morning is AM Live NTV. Let's take a very quick break. We'll be back and continue this conversation.
Future bright, ndo we check labda dunge diga kaza welding.
Kwetu Mix on NTV.
This is how we do it, this is how we get down. Niko shua hii utaiona, mbona, sinilize mbona.
Discover the exciting world around the showbiz and celebrity news, the hottest mixes from top DJs, mind-blowing interviews on your favorite entertainment show, Kwetu Mix, only on NTV.
Ni maombi, tumeona mkono wa Bwana, sio juju. Ni maombi, tumeona mkono wa Bwana.
Amjambo wa Kenya, kwa majina naitwa Justina Siokau, aka Madam 2020. Kupata wimbo wangu wa Ni Maombi, bonyeza *812 *803 #. Skiza na Nation, supporting local talent.
The cost of living is steadily rising across the world, leaving many families struggling to make the ends meet. I'm in Nairobi to assess the impact and find out what African governments can do to address the problem.
I am Nadia Karimu, a Togolese, a fashion designer. I ventured in the traditional West African huts for chiefs to avail a rare product to Africans who have a desire to convey something that will enhance their appearance.
I mean, I've been here, 20 years, and it really feels like I've just got here.
Francis Apofo, a Ghanaian-born former professional boxer, retired to practice poultry farming in the UK.
Crystal Rivers Residences along Mombasa Road comprises 3-bedroomed apartments, 3-bedroomed and 4-bedroom townhouses. The only mixed-use development close to the Nairobi Expressway. Easy payment plans available. Terms and conditions apply. Call 0757 620 202.
It's the headquarters of good vibes. So I should just kneel and begin to call on Jesus because I'm a bishop.
You know, Dr. Kingori, yes, you sound like a street fighter. Where did you grab it? Unataka noma.
Kingori, let me tell you something. Mimi mtu angenipata saa hiyo nikiwa first year, angeangukia bibi mzuri.
You know, they always say smart women, where to catch them is with love.
Kingori, I love how your suit looks. I love you in a suit. I love you in a t-shirt.
As in any example, ama you actually mean that? Maifungua akili ya msee ama kichwa ya msee ukapata vile watu husema huyu jamaa ana akili.
Tunaweza toa nyama kwa huko nyuma tuweke kwa
kifua. Sisi mtu anakuwa na roho chafu sana. Na ukidive inahesabiwa?
Yes, ndio ukiwin, udive win si umewin.
Hiyo ndio tizi unafaa upige. Napiganga tu tizi ya 90 meters ya kwanza, alafu nikifika 90 meters na fly. Every Friday on NTV 7:30 p.m.
Soil Merchants is offering you the opportunity to own a residential plot in Ngong, one of the fastest growing towns near Nairobi. Get an 8-acre plot for only 595,000 shillings inclusive of title deed. Join us on our open day on 15th October 2022.
All right, thank you for staying with us. You're watching M Live on NTV, and of course, just taking a look at what's in the daily, still on this particular issue, and anxiety as Treasury kicks off the 300 billion budget cuts. A couple of casualties there, top spenders on the non-essential items, and you see some of the issues there coming up: travel, hospitality, training, contracting professional services, as well as many other issues. And of course, this is some of the issues that perhaps will be informing those budget cuts due to the history of splashing money on luxuries. Dismas, you wanted to respond on this issue. And I mean, so, you know, Dansan says it is necessary. But do you agree?
You know, number one, we need fiscal discipline. That one is not debatable. It's not subject to debate. But the issue my colleague is talking about is that the motivation for most people to join the public sector is allowances. And in my view, that is voodoo thinking. We must review the compensation for public servants so that it's at par with the private sector. And then we must have key performance indicators so that the public sector is able to attract, retain, and reward top talent. So for somebody to simply join the public sector because they say the salary may be peanuts, but the allowances are going to make my payslip very fast. In my view, that is the wrong approach, and that could undermine the performance of the public sector.
Is this why we're seeing a lot of clamor with people hoping to just get into the public service sector? Yeah, so what the SRC must do is review the compensation for the, not the public servants of rank, for them, you know, they're paid top dollar, but for the people in the lower job groups, so that their salary is very competitive, that they can afford 3 meals a day, they can afford to pay rent, you know, meet all the obligations without struggling, and then expect them to deliver. So in my view, we must not say that, let me join the public sector because the pay is very low, but I'm going to get on the allowances. And then there's some things that we really need to justify. For instance, when you're talking about flowers, what is the return on investment on those flowers? If you're, maybe you have a delegation going to attend a meeting in Nigeria, why do you need to go with 90 persons if 10 people are sufficient? Those are the things that public servants must do. And in my view, President Ruto must step on the accelerator, ensure that we have all these adjustments, but ensure that the compensation is in such a manner that is able to attract, retain, and reward top talent without having any wastage. The idea of having 267 allowances flies in the face of logic. For instance, some members of the National Assembly, Senate, or even county assemblies, they are given sitting allowances. What is the purpose of a sitting allowance? And you've been retained to do this job. Some of the public servants of rank, they are given multiple vehicles. Men have got as many as
5 vehicles, 5 personal assistants. You know, there's not any discipline. So in my view, we must have that discipline, and we cannot defend positions simply because they're attractive to the public.
All right. And look, I hope we can get into this a bit later. Just a quick just reactions here from Kenyans. Dio Opande saying, good move, not smart to spend taxpayers' funds in nonsensical allowances that don't add up at all during these harsh economic times. And Shuja bin Shuja saying, kindly exempt health workers and security institutions from the pay cuts. Mwakazi Julia saying he should start with the state officers, including himself. I was shocked to hear that MPs bag up to $1 million each on salary and allowances that make it more than 300 million per month. And finally, just one more comment here from Nicholas Kieva saying no public servant should be earning over 500K. Austerity measures should define us to put our economy on the right track, but then the only problem we have is corruption. Austerity measures and corruption do not go hand in hand. Look, we'll get into this conversation in just a bit in a moment. Another report here still in the Daily Nation. Wanjigi, keep poll losers out of cabinet. Businessman wants Ruto. He risks being held hostage by politicians. That's the Safina Party leader Jimmy Wanjigi, warning the president not to use the public service to revive careers of politicians who lost in the August 9th general election. The former presidential aspirant says the president should be wary of having too many politicians in his government, either as cabinet secretaries or principal secretaries. Dunstan, what do you think? Are we blotting our executive with politicians?
We don't agree with Maina Wanjigi, but this one we agree with him. One,
Jimmy Wanjigi.
Jimmy Wanjigi, we have never agreed on quite a number of issues. The question about the politicians in cabinet, I totally agree it's the right thing.
To have
at
the
cabinet,
right.
At the cabinet. But when you get a PS, a principal secretary, who is a politician, these are employees. The topmost civil servant is a principal secretary who is supposed to apply. The job is advertised. He applies. He gets shortlisted. The names, either 30 or 40, go to the president. He decides who he appoints as a principal secretary. The first advert came. It was extended to 27 to allow politicians to apply. When 27th came, it took 2 weeks for the first list to come out. The list of 477 came out. It again mutated the next day to 585 people. The question is, these are 49 positions to be appointed, to be competed for. Why on earth are we seeing the political class for the first time in the principal secretary's positions? We are likely to see all the former governors, all the former members of parliament, all the contestants being given a principal secretary's position. This is totally against the tenets of Article 232 of public service. Okay, everybody is allowed to apply, and everybody is likely to, because he's a citizen, to get the job. But the question is, when you put the AIE holder, that is a person with the capacity and authority to spend money, that is a principal secretary, being a politician. The cabinet minister is a politician. The chief administrative officer is a politician. The principal secretary is a politician. Are we going to see it cascading to the directors, directorates at every state department being a politician? This is now a government of politics. We are going to see the death of professionalism and the death of looking at issues from a technical point of view. Yes, politicians are technicians, but they have grown and they are becoming now politicians. The end result, money will be released in a political angle. A permanent secretary is supposed to release money pursuant to the policies and physical discipline that is envisaged under the Constitution. But the president has his right. He can appoint anybody. But as Nadi says, we are likely to see a serious fight between a former governor who is a PS and a cabinet minister who was an MP under him. It's going to be a serious fiasco.
Let's hear from Ishmael.
Yeah, you know, I just look at it, you know, from the background of where the president is coming from. And he believes ministers should come to parliament to give remarks and answer to questions.
In fact, his ministers will be held accountable.
Yes, he said
in plenary, in parliament, right?
Yeah, and then he also comes from a background of he promised a lot of his friends that he has to reward them. And we know very well that in the previous dispensation, a lot of people were complaining against Raila, the people around him in NASA, you know, just the other day when Kalonzo was almost going away from Azimio. The question is, we don't trust this man. He says this, but then after the elections, he says this again. So I think that as far as Ruto is concerned, he has managed to, you know, cool down temperatures within his Kenya Kwanza government, and I think that's where he's coming from. And then again, you know, we have to be fair, you know, even when we are not supporting anybody in that sense that when is a person a politician? Does it mean if Mr. Umari today here goes and contests for seat of senator for Nyamira, which I believe is not looking to contest?
We never know. You can never know.
I have no interest. And then he loses. Okay? Does it mean he's still a politician? Does it mean because he was a governor at one time, does the Constitution envisage a situation whereby it's because you contested, but you are no longer, you know, a politician, in the sense that you are not in any political office? Are you still considered a politician? So I think, you know, we should be, you know, just fair enough when we are commentating about, you know, who is a politician and who is not.
All right, this was.
You see, when President Ruto is putting together his administration, the cabinet secretaries, chief administrative secretaries, if it goes through the entire process, and principal secretaries, in my view, the guiding light would be whether or not these persons have got capacity and competence to deliver. That is the bottom line. Because the role of a head of a state department, who is the principal secretary, essentially is the authorized officer in charge of human capital, human resource, and the accounting officer in charge of financial resources. Now, if these persons have got capacity and competence to deliver, then in my view, there is no cause for alarm. And it's not as if that these principal secretaries are going to work in isolation and they're going to be given a blank check. No, we've got the Public Finance Management Act, the Procurement Act. There's a lot of legal and regulatory framework to guide on how they deliver their services. However, it's important for him to ensure then that it does not reward people who may not be having capacity nor competence to deliver. So that when they go into office, instead of working for the next 5 years to serve the hustlers, to serve Sadia, and to serve Mora, they'll be looking at the 2027 elections. Now, if you load these sensitive positions with people, that for them the reason of being office is to run for elections in 2027, then there's a very high probability that they may not deliver. Which is why President Ruto, anybody he gives office today, the cabinet secretaries, chief administrative secretaries, and the principal secretaries, all of them must be given performance indicators. We need to know what they're supposed to be doing, what they're supposed to be delivering. And in my view, as it tends to happen in the West, especially in the US, the moment he appoints anybody into office, they should also sign their resignation letter. So that if they do not deliver on his expectations, if they do not serve Mora, he just one day wakes up in the morning and he says, I've accepted this resignation. Because we need to start encouraging resignation in
that's
Kenya.
not the culture we have here in the country.
No, you know, part of the reason why we travel widely and read widely is to embrace best practices. So we must borrow these best practices. You saw a few days ago in the UK, the new Prime Minister fired a cabinet secretary, sorry, the equivalent, a minister, merely on allegations. In the UK, a minister runs late for a meeting, they resign. So we must embrace this art of resignation, that we give people a pat on the back when they resign if they're not able to deliver on their services.
All right. Let's just wind up on the Daily Nation. This is just two other stories I just want us to look at. India, the destination of choice for Kenyan patients. This is what the ministry says. Apparently, the number of patients referred abroad for medical care has been increasing over the years, with nearly all turning to India for specialized treatment, for which Kenya spends 10 billion shillings annually. According to the Ministry of Health, 97% of the patients cleared to seek treatment abroad from 2015 to 2020 went to India, with the rest visiting South Africa, USA, and the United Kingdom. 97% of the patients between 2015 and 2020 went to India. Do we lack in terms of our health provision, Danson?
It's too bad. It is such a horrid data that at this time we must spend a lot of money taking our relatives to India.
But where do you think the problem is?
The problem is we have never fixed our healthcare. We have totally refused to fix our healthcare. When COVID came and there was no flying to India, that is when the political class got the hit, because they had to go to Nyamira dispensary because they couldn't even move to Kisii Hospital.
Right.
We need to put and invest heavily in our healthcare facilities. The president has talked about NHIF, restructuring NHIF to have a comprehensive medical insurance cover and facilities that are there. Are we likely to get this? And this boils to the question. We are reducing, from here, the Minister of Health, we are going to reduce the amount of money that we are pumping into training of doctors. We are going to reduce the amount of money that goes to the hospitals. Can we deal with the health question very urgently, because it affects everybody? It is a national shame that 97% of patients are going to India. Why can't we give, instead of us having this EPZ for factories, we are giving tax incentives for factories to be put in this place? Why can't we give land and infrastructure to allow those Indian hospitals to construct hospitals here, and we supplement? So really we do not seem to understand the cost of medical care. Every family in this country now has a cancer patient. Every family in this country is now fighting with the kidney ailment, the dialysis. So why don't we make it as a national priority instead of looking for non-core business? I hope President William Ruto's government will prioritize that and put up a park. Land for free, 10,000 acres. Let the Indian investors come, invest in hospitals here. They are not taxed. They put those facilities in this country so that we can save the hard-earned foreign exchange that we take to India.
All right, Ishmael, I mean, according to this particular report, some of the patients interviewed cited the high cost of treatment in the country, long waiting period, and the lack of specialized medics and equipment as some of the reasons for seeking the treatment abroad. Do we need a complete overhaul of our healthcare system? What do we really need to look into? And also, just on the same, apparently the Indian Prime Minister, who is Narendra Modi, says his focus is on 4 main pillars: universal health, preventive health, affordable healthcare, and mission mode intervention. And I think that's why perhaps India is becoming quite, a perfect destination for those who are seeking treatment.
Yeah. You see, in Kenya, everything is red carpet. Even walking into a hospital, even you being, dragged on a mat, it's red carpet. Anasikiaje mweke hapo. Everyone wants to practice life, in a straight jacket. And this is not totally, to what the Kenyans want. It's not adding up. This happened in the education sector. For a very long time, our citizens flew to India to actually study. Not necessarily because they were the worst of brains, but primarily because the education sector was so badly mismanaged that people had to look elsewhere. Now, shortly thereafter, then we had the open learning take shape in Kenya, where, alternative evening classes started and all that, and then the country opened up. there is a problem in the health sector. Much as we talk about we want more drugs, we want more doctors, we actually hired doctors from Cuba the other day. So it is about the red carpet. The technocrats in the Ministry of Health, the way they structure the system of getting simple drugs, the theft, the corruption, people siphoning, government drugs to private clinics and all that. It is a whole sort of mess in the Ministry of Health. And I think we should learn from Indians. I hear they actually operate people on a simple desk and then take them to the ward. So I think our country should look very seriously in terms of how to completely demystify this concept of you got to go to that big hospital and then pay all this money to be treated. Yes.
Because actually the newspaper talks about a general manager at a hospital there in India known as Gitanjali Hospital in Rajasthan. The doctor, Mr. Akhil Dev is not a doctor, he's the general manager, says their hospitals are quite attractive to Africans because they're ready to do business partnerships and offer transport services to ensure patients arrive and settle in with ease. They also partner with real estate owners and hotels to offer cheaper accommodation to foreign patients, just like what Danson was saying.
Well, this has been my space for a while, so I've got intimate, almost expert knowledge on medical tourism.
Right.
Now, let's give President Kenyatta credit. He has invested, or rather when he was president, he invested a lot of resources in the military, so that the military is now coming up with very high-level hospitals. And then you have the Kenyatta University Teaching, Research and Referral Hospital, which has got some of the best cancer treatment facilities in Africa, top of the range. And both private and public sector players have actually invested heavily in coming up with world-class infrastructure, as well as getting world-class human capital. The challenge you have in Kenya is about the level of taxation for medical equipment and the drugs used. In my conversations with some of the pharmacists and medical doctors, they say on average there are 50 taxes on any drug you buy in Kenya. There are 50 taxes on most of the medical equipment you buy in Kenya. So it's actually the tax component which makes the cost of Medicare in Kenya fairly high. It's not about lack of medical doctors. Kenya has got very, very serious, highly regarded human capital. In fact, the nurses trained in Kenya, the ones who speak good English, they sell like hotcake. If you go to New Zealand, you go to Australia, you go to the US, you go to UK, you get Kenyan trained human resource. So it means that we have got very solid human capital. We've got very solid hospitals. When you look at hospitals like Gertrude, when it comes to treating cancer for kids, they score highly. You've got a facility like Medihill. Now, for us to position ourselves as a medical tourist destination, number one, we have to reduce on that tax component because it inflates the costs. And then number two, part of the reason why India is a huge success, they've taken it as a business. They've got marketing agents in Kenya. When you go to India, this marketing agent gets a commission. So they are all over, they are proactive, they go to hospitals, they cut partnerships, because for them, they're looking at, they don't even look at, for them, they don't see a patient, they see a client, they get commissions. So even on the issues of real estate accommodation, still going back to the Kenyatta University Teaching and Research and Referral Hospital, they've got accommodation for, if you're coming from outside Kenya and you've got a patient, or even if you're in Kenya, you've got a patient, they've got facilities. So in my view, the Kenyan facilities are ready for medical tourism. All we need to do is to reorient the commercial attaches in our embassies and high commissions on missions abroad to proactively market Kenya and review the tax components. In fact, I can venture and say that this tax component is now an urgent matter for the Kenya Kwanza administration. You may be surprised to learn that rich Kenyans who've got helicopters, they do not service nor repair the helicopters in Kenya. They go to Uganda. Why? The cost of the spares for helicopters in Kenya is obscene. The cost of servicing in Kenya is obscene. So what do people do? When your chopper is ready for service or review, no, you go to Uganda because it's cheaper. So in my view, really, the elephant in the room in all these conversations is about taxation, taxation, and taxation.
All right. And certainly, perhaps that's what the government needs to look at. Let's just move away from the Daily Nation. This is what we have on the front page of the Business Daily. NSC pushes for law change to scrap chair CEO term limits. The board has submitted approval request to the CMA. That's the Nairobi Securities Exchange that has petitioned the Capital Markets Authority to amend regulations that impose term limits for its CEO and allow the boards to extend the tenure of its current boss, now Geoffrey Odundo, beyond March next year. Well, that's one report there. I don't know if any of you gentlemen to mention that. Right. Yes, this was.
In terms of corporate governance, the term limits are an indispensable proposition. When you go to an organization, you're supposed to deliver on your mandate, and as soon as the term limits catch up on you, you take a walk. This idea of having people taking offices, especially in the corporate sector, where you have a number of directors manipulating the board to scrap these limits is unacceptable. Right. If there's a term limit, say you do 2 terms of 4 years, you take a walk. Please serve for your 4 years, take a walk. Right. There's a high risk that you may find a CEO and the chair, after they scrap the term limits, it's as if they bought a piece of land. They become permanent and pensionable in that position. They own systems. Everybody dances to their drum beats, and they will not take a walk.
All right.
You know, some people are real good in what they do, and you just don't want to let them go. And but is Kenya, has it opened up its market so that people like Kitoni and Odundo can actually transfer themselves from these particular institutions to another one? Then you will hear people complaining about William Ruto planning to change the constitution to lead forever. I mean, it starts with us. It is us who actually like someone, and then we whisper to him that we want you to extend the term limit. So I think it's not a very good corporate sign when you want to extend limits like
this. Yes,
well, I totally don't agree with these NSC people, because a term limit, the contract that was advertised had a term limit. You knew very well your term limit ends at 4 years. You just serve and go away. We've seen the KCB guru. He's moved from KCB Oigara. He's now heading to Stanbic. And that is the culture worldwide. This Museveni approach of people staying till death cannot be entertained.
But the market regulator says that the NSC has cited ongoing restructuring of the exchange and need for continuity. If
that guy dies today, what happens? It is not an individual that deals with the continuity. It is the structures that have been put in place. A human being can exit the stage anytime, but the structures that are put in place ensure. For example, Uhuru has left. William has come. Kibaki left. That is how every entity should be, that you cannot put a life of an entity based on a life of a human being.
So will it not destabilize?
No.
You see, if you look at this,
there's no destability. You know, as a good leader, you must create systems that will run with or without you. Now, the challenge you have in the third world is that some of these people who are given these positions as CEO or chair of boards, they convert themselves, they become the system, so that the organization will not run in their absence. And as Omar has indicated, something may happen to you. You will be taking a shower in the morning, and your life comes to an end. Does the organization come to a standstill because you've left?
Zainab, we need to give them, I think, a fair hearing. If you look at page 2 of the same paper, you will see that there are several people there. This one lady and several gentlemen who have served for over 15 years. You look at Crown Paints, 17 years. You look at Equity Bank, 18 years. You look at DTB, 21 years, and so on and so forth.
Those are private entities.
Yeah, but they are publicly listed. I think that's the whole concept. And you look at one of them, they're 33 years. So I think there could be professional jealous or rivalry that they also wanted to buy into.
You know, Zainab, this gentleman on my right, Ishmael Nyaribo, is a highly regarded lawyer who offers classes and training on corporate governance. One of the pillars in corporate governance is that you set up systems that will outlive you. Now, you cannot go to page 2 and say because there's somebody who's served for more than 15 years, then now that's a justification.
No, I'm just saying,
for people
I'm comparing actually.
All right, let's just move on.
Acceptable.
Okay.
I mean, If we cannot allow politicians to extend term limits, if you are frowning on President Museveni, why should we encourage this culture in Kenya? I mean, President Kenyatta was told, or rather Kibaki, 2 terms.
2 terms.
Kenyatta 2 terms, Ruto 2 terms. Why would we allow the private sector, not really private sector, public listed companies, owned by Mora, Sadia and Wanjiko, to have CEOs play around with the board, manipulate their contracts, and behave as if they own the organization? It's unacceptable.
All right, and by the way, President William Ruto is expected to launch the enhanced NSC marketplace this morning. All right, let's just move on. This is what's on the front page of Taifa Leo. Raila atafutia Raila unga. All right? Mkenya awasilisha hoja kwa IBC akitaka nambari 2 katika kura ya urais ateuliwe seneta. Upinzani. Now, juhudi zimeanzishwa kuhakikisha kuwa nambari 2 katika uchaguzi wa urais na mwaniaji mwenzake wanapata kifuta machozi badala ya kutoka mikono mitupu jinsi ilivyo kwa sasa, ambapo licha ya kuzoa kura nyingi wanabakia kuwa raia wa kawaida tu.
I'm not sure whether Dansan will comment in Swahili.
I hope you understood.
I can answer that in Kiswahili.
Wait, Dansan, you understood this particular report, right? That the number 2 in the presidential election must not go empty-handed. That they must be awarded something at least.
Ule raia ambaye amewasilisha hoja hiyo katika kotini ama katika Senate ni kwamba haya ndio yaliyokuwa katika BBI. Hivi kwamba mgombea ambaye atakuwa wa pili atakuwa na kiti maalum katika bunge ama katika nafasi fulani. Lakini sheria ambayo tuko nayo ya
Mama uende Kiswahili kabisa. Alright.
Na mjibu.
Okay, naam, let's continue.
Hawa wataeleza kwa Kiswahili, kwa Kizungu, but I can change.
Yes.
Hivi kwamba sheria ya constitution tulionayo iko purely 100% presidential. Hivi kwamba the winner takes it all. Chochote kama hukupata, kiti ni kimoja cha rais na naibu wake. Viti vingine vilivyosalia ni cabinet. Kwa hivyo ule ambaye amejitupa ulingoni kung'ang'ania kiti hawezi kuwa senator. Ile katiba ya kwanza tuliyokuwa nayo ndio ilikuwa hivyo. So in summary, what I'm saying, the old constitutional dispensation that was removed was a hybrid, a mongrel between a parliamentary system and a presidential system. The constitutional dispensation that we have now is 100% presidential. That is why William Ruto did not contest as a member of parliament of Sugoi. He went for the presidency completely. If you lose, you go away. That is the law. And that application will not succeed unless the constitution is amended. The only way Raila Odinga can be a senator is if he convinces one senator to resign. When he goes to contest in a by-election, when he comes in as a senator.
This petition was being filed by a medical doctor or an architect, I think.
It is an architect. It's an architect.
We've seen it on
Yes. It is good that he's airing views, but Kenyans, let us get it very clearly that if anybody wants a seat, you decide which seat you are going for. Raila went for the presidency. He cannot now again start going for senator.
You know, this is the Kenyans we are. We really actually, when we go into politics and campaigning, we are never logical. We don't elect people because they have this particular kind of qualification. We just, I think, emotively elect them. You can see a very good proposal. It is true that a person with such, immense influence in the country is relegated to rest for 5 years. And we don't get to utilize him in parliament or anywhere else. So in my humble view, and this is why now the country just rejected BBI. And I have seen the president actually approaching his administration as though he's implementing some parts of BBI. But we rejected it. So this is how Kenya is. We actually are not logical, reasonable in decisions. We simply come up and say, who is standing there, Zainab? Or, let's give her. Then later we are like, oh, we didn't want to do this. So I think Kenyans should logically, reasonably look at a proposal once it has been fronted, irrespective of who has fronted it. Right. Because this is really, really going into what the BBI was talking about.
Yes,
You know, 3 points. Number one, Kenyans did not get the opportunity to express themselves on BBI. There was no referendum. So when lawyer Nyarubo says that we rejected, I don't know what he means by we, because the Supreme Court pronounced itself on the processes and other issues. But number two, in a pure presidential system, there's no consolation prize. When you're running for presidency, you know that if you do not win, you're going to be in the political cold for 5 years, 10 years, or your career will have come to an end. So in my view, we shouldn't be creating consolation prizes for people who do not win. If you do not win, take a break. Now, if you've got influence, use the influence to get people to elect you to a position of leadership. If we entertain this kind of petitions, then they will start all over from when somebody is running for an MCA, he will say, I was number 2 as an MCA, can you give me a consolation prize? I was number 2 as a governor, give me a consolation prize. For Senate, give me a consolation prize. And we'll end up giving people consolation prizes, and it will affect what you see in the headline of the Nation about the public wage bill. So these consolation prizes we must run.
But look at the reasoning, just quickly before we take a very quick break this must. So he says this, and I'm going to quote what the Taifa Leo says. Kwa mujibu wa mwasilishaji wa ombi hilo, that Odinga au mtu yeyote anaibuka wa pili huwa na karibu nusu ya nchi nyuma yake, right? So si vyema mtu kama huyo kuwa asiye na wajibu wowote kwa nchi kwa kipindi cha miaka 5.
In a presidential system, and where you have
still doesn't work.
Where you have democracy,
right.
Normally the winner gets 51%, the loser gets 49%. So it's almost 50-50. Now, if you think you've got that influence and capacity, just make sure, if you're running for president in Kenya, just make sure you get 50% plus 1. If you don't, take a break.
It's the law.
In a pure presidential system, look at the people who lose elections in the US. When you lose the election in the US, you take a walk. If you're not a senator or a congressman, you go and take a walk. Now for Mr. Raila Odinga, I don't think his stature, his political capital would suggest that he goes to the National Assembly to start having conversations with those young legislators, or even go to the Senate. That will be diluting his brand. What Raila must do now is to ask himself, why did I lose the election? You know, he has been blaming IBC, he's been blaming the court for his misadventure. But in my view, his problem, foreign nationals, his problem is not IBC, his problem is not the court, his problem is not the foreign nationals, his problem is his incapacity to maintain political friends and manage the electoral process.
All right. Time to take a break. But this is what we do have on the front page of the East African. Museveni's Avenger, East Africa's nightmare. Uganda's tweeting, General Muhoozi remains a pain as his ambition runs counter to his father's plans and puts the state's relations with neighbors at risk. We'll talk about that when we come back. And Seeds of Gold, this is for the farmers. Beat the drought. Find out the techniques you can employ on your farm to overcome the frequent dry spells. Pages 23 to 25. All right, we'll take a break now. We will be back and we'll continue with the conversation. Talk to us. The hashtag we're using this morning is MLiveNTV. We'll be back in a few.
Number 1, did you steal the onga from the onga shop? Who, me? Yes, you couldn't be. Then who? Number 2. Number 2, did you steal Murenta from Murenta shop? Who, me? Yes, you couldn't be. Then who? Number 3. Number 3, did you steal the chicken from the chicken farm? Who, me? Yes, you couldn't be. Then who? All of us.
To get Did You Steal, dial star 811 star 936 hash. Skiza na Nation.
Piga simu bila kikomo kwa saa moja kwa 20 bob tu uendelee kuongea na uwapendao. Piga star 444 star 22 hash au tembelea My Safaricom app leo.
Learn in a minute, brought to you by Nivea Lumina 630 Anti-Dark Mark Serum.
Dark marks on my face? What causes them? Yet I've tried everything. Hello, my name is Emma and this is Learn in a Minute. Dark marks are caused by different factors such as sun exposure, skin inflammation, for example, acne breakout, aging, or hormonal imbalance, leading to melanin imbalance and appearance of dark marks on the face. Let's start with dark marks from hormonal imbalance. It mostly affects us ladies and can be in the form of hyperpigmentation during pregnancy, where a lady's skin complexion completely changes. But panic not. Solution iko. You need a serum that regulates this hyperpigmentation and also prevents any reappearance. I'm thinking Nivea Lumina 630 Anti-Dark Marks. It starts working from day 1 with visible results in just 2 weeks. My name is Emma and this is Learn in a Minute.
Learn in a Minute, brought to you by Nivea Lumina 630 Anti-Dark Mark Serum.
Nivea Lumina 630 works from day 1 with visible results in just 2 weeks and 71% dark marks reduction in 12. Join the 1 million women already using the #1 Lumina 630 from Nivea.
Soil Merchants is offering you the opportunity to own a residential plot in Ngong, one of the fastest growing towns near Nairobi. Get an 1/8-acre plot for only 595,000 shillings inclusive of title deed. Join us on our open day on 15th October 2022.
Thanks for staying with us. You're watching M Live on NTV. Still looking a bit on what's in the dailies. This is what's on the front page of The Star. Farouk Kibet, the total man in Ruto presidency. The former Wareng councillor undoubtedly wields immense power in the new administration. Now, Dunstan, when you're looking at this man, I mean, he's attracted quite a lot of attention from Kenyans, especially after the swearing in of the president, William Ruto. And interestingly enough, I don't know, he's brought in, you know, some sort of controversial remarks as to how he fits into this structure of government. Who is Farouk Kibet?
It's a very interesting phenomenon worldwide. William Ruto and his brigade campaigned of state capture. That there were individuals who are not government officers or public officers who are exercising state power. We have now Farouk Kibet, who the deputy of this country, the deputy president of this country, who voters voted with 7 million votes, admitting that for him to access his boss, he must pass through Farouk, who holds no public office. This is a new dimension that is likely to cause a lot of problems within the William Ruto campaign. You've seen Duale, Ndindi Nyoro, everybody seems to be saying, boss, you are the boss. Allow us to see the president. Are we likely to see this person becoming a Matere Kiriri who blocked everybody from entering State House? Are we likely to see Farouk becoming the wall behind the president, so that the president is not accessible to very many Kenyans. But Farouk Kibet, you've seen his record. The media has failed to tell us how he went after primary school to study privately. That is a question mark. Number two, he has been a personal assistant to President William Ruto from 1990s. He has been involved in the YK 92. So he knows the president in and out. The president is very comfortable with him because this is the only constant from when William Ruto was a young politician. All the others have been coming either through ODM, they leave. Others come through URP, they leave. Others have come through UDA, they leave. Others have now come through Kenya Kwanza, they will leave. But this person is a constant. And everybody worldwide has somebody who is a constant. That person wields a lot of power. The question is, will he be the conduit for corruption? Because all those people who have occupied such positions, like Biwott, like the others, have been the conduit for that. I'll confirm that I've met him severally, not once. Those days when I was in, that time it was Jubilee Tanga, before it became to UDA. He's a very humble person. Kibet is a very humble person. I've met him severally, not once. But behind that face is a resolute person who knows what needs to be done, and he's unapologetic. It must be done. And everybody has said that he's that Mr. Perfectionist, that if the president has given him instructions that this thing must be done, he'll deliver it. Many of the people who are complaining are those lazy people who don't do anything. They want entitlement, but they have not worked for it. Kibet has worked, Farouk has worked to the top, and now he's sitting as the one with the key to President William Ruto's coffers, or President William Ruto's. All I'm only cautioning is that we hope he will not misuse this position. We saw the likes of Muradhi, who became the presidents themselves because they were associated nearer to President retired Uhuru Kenyatta. They became tyrants. They became people who you could not approach. I hope Kibet does not take that advantage and becomes the Muradhi of Uhuru Kenyatta, and now he becomes the Muradhi of William Ruto.
Let's hear from Ishmael. And still, you know, this has been actually featured, you know, full page on the Standard as well, away from the Star. That's on page 8 of the Standard. Farouk Kibet, Ruto's powerful right-hand man. It says, in fact, on Sunday during the Thanksgiving service at Koilel, Kenya Kwanza politicians led by Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua showered Farouk with praises owing to his strict, loyal and organized nature. The leaders describing Ruto's personal assistant as a man wielding immense power, such that he determines who gets to see the president.
Yeah, I don't know what exactly I want. I can speak about Farouk. I do not know him, but I just wanted to say what I see from the media.
Right.
You know, if you look at William Ruto, is a project that students need to study in terms of discipline and hard work. Now you're telling me that Farouk is disciplined as much. You know, when you talk about discipline, that means you can respond to time, you respond to situations around you, and you respond to your focus. I mean, you know where you're going and you know how to go there. So that probably tells me Farouk is probably a teetotaler. I don't know him.
He is. He doesn't.
He is. Oh, look at that. So I think he's a teetotaler, he's stuck to a focus, and I think that's why now the president likes him, in the sense that if I want to rely on somebody to wake up at 2 in the morning, he will not be telling me I'm a bit tired because I was in the bar all night or something like that. Without any prejudice to anyone else and what they believe in, the truth is that then it means these two gentlemen, together with others who are such discipline, should be studied by especially the youth. I mean, you want to be successful, you study this kind of people because they are focused. I keep asking myself, how does Rift Valley manage to produce such people? By the way, they come out as extremely mono-eyed. They are sticklers to a certain focus and they go there. That is still something I probably would want to learn.
All right, this was.
You know, every successful leader has got a team of persons that they can trust. For instance, if you tell that person that I'd like you to deliver on a certain project, you are sure they're going to deliver on time, that you don't need to make a call. And in my view, those are serious assets that any leader needs to build a system which will assist him deliver on the objectives. And it happens in every democracy, in the UK, in the US, that every prime minister or a president has got those people around him that will live in, on their own motion, do things to the perfection of their boss. And I think this is where Farouk Kibet falls in, that probably the president has got a lot of trust, that when he tells him, please drive a certain agenda, he doesn't need to call him again to ask him, umefika wapi? Or when he tells him, can you do this thing before 11 o'clock? The person will not make a call at 12:30, say, excuse me, sir, I failed to deliver because of, coming up with reasons. So a successful leader must build a very efficient, super efficient system around him, which will deliver the results.
Right.
And if the boss is happy, then I don't see why anybody else would be complaining.
Okay, great. So I just want us to, as we, come to almost a close within the couple of, 10 or 15 minutes, this is what I want us to discuss. Ruto's 30 days in office, what's he done so far and how far the journey is? Of course, so we're looking at, after the dust settles on the rigorous campaigns, Kenyans are still waiting for President William Ruto to start delivering his pledges 30 days after he was sworn in. Now, a month into office, let's take a look at some of the pledges that he has met. Musalia Mudavadi, nominated Prime Cabinet Secretary. Moses Wetangula, fronted for and elected as Speaker of the National Assembly. He's offered affordable inputs, including fertilizer and certified seeds to boost production and cut consumer prices. That's on the issue of prices. Executive directive that put police budget under the Inspector General's office already issued in line with the pledge that Ruto made during his inauguration. All port operations reverted to Mombasa Port from Naivasha Inland Container Depot. Ruto keeps hustlers waiting for the low-hanging fruits. And so we're looking at some of the biggest issues as well. Cost of living. He acknowledged during his inauguration speech that Kenyans had during the campaigns shared their anxiety, pain and fury on the rising cost of living, but he says consumption subsidies are not sustainable and that they are prone to abuse. And now he wants to take a long-term view in solving this by addressing production issues such as high input costs, the issue of maize flour, the issue of fuel. You are vulnerable and the old people. The women. Ruto named his cabinet but fell short of his promise to give 50% of the positions to women. Persons living with disabilities also had a say on that. The young people, youth await Ruto pledge to cut calls and data costs to allow them to use online platforms. There's the health issue, small businesses, education and sports. I'll ask this and I'll start with you, Dunstan. It's been a month since President William Ruto took over the reins of power as the head of state. Is it too early to assess his performance 30 days in?
The assessment of William Ruto should be done after 100 days. Worldwide, the benchmark is 100 days. He has only done 30. We have 70 more days. The infrastructure he has laid down, definitely, at the striking of the hour of 100 days, William Ruto will have delivered quite a... Remember, I have always said this. People need to understand that the William Ruto we are dealing with is a different president in State House. Jomo Kenyatta I entered State House when he was very old, and he had a lot of medical problems and other vices related to him. President Moi was in State House. He could wake up at 4 and sleep at midnight, but he really did not grasp what were the nitty-gritty of the statecraft and how to run government. Then we got President, the late Kibaki. He came to State House, a master's degree graduate from Makerere University, but the problem was that he had a medical condition out of the accident. He delegated quite a number of his jobs to cabinet secretaries and remained only with the economy. Then came in President Uhuru Kenyatta, a hands-off president who relied in the first term on William Ruto, and the second time from 2017, he relied on Raila Odinga to run the state.
Is that a fair assessment?
That is myself. Now we have a president for the first time who has a PhD from a local university, all 3 degrees from local university as the head of state. 2, a titular. He is not in that line of drinks.
Does that...
it is going to change the dynamics of results.
Right.
3, this is a president who reports to work at 4. For the first time, staffs in State House are crying because they have never been used to a president who reports at 4. This is a president who has the pulse of the economy, he has the pulse of politics, he has the pulse of running a country, and that is why you are seeing William Ruto work 7 days. Even on Sunday, he'll go to church. After that, he'll be doing politics in rallies in Homa Bay. So we are likely to see a drastic change in terms of delivery of service. So the hustlers who think that William Ruto has not done much for them, the infrastructure he has laid down, the physical discipline, the monetary discipline, the questions about answer. Where on earth have you seen if a sitting president doing cabinet meetings with an outgoing cabinet? President William Ruto has had 2 meetings with the likes of Munya, the likes of Matiang'i, to run government. Because if it was a president who was saying, let me wait until my cabinet is full, is in place, we could not be seeing cabinet decisions running on. So we are likely to see, if I'm supposed to give, to award the president, I'll give him a 72% out of 100% in terms of the 30 days that he has put his hands on very many issues. Look at also the diplomatic angle. He has already even done diplomacy, yet it's 30 days.
Okay, we'll get back to that as well. Yes,
so Ishmael. I think even in 100 days, I mean, I agree we should judge the president after 100 days, but even in 100 days, to be very honest with how I feel, the hustlers will not be very happy. Because the promises during campaigns turn out to be totally different when it comes to managing and, running the country. Because now Ruto is working for the country. That time he was working for Kenya Kwanza and trying to, for the hustlers. So in terms of, he said, let's not borrow, anymore. He has realized that there is not enough money, he may have to borrow. In terms of, whether he's going to, create the funds he needs, he wants the hustler fund, but it has to come from cutting line ministries, and you had this Omari saying that he is actually not going to do that because he's going to be opposed by technocrats. So I don't think hustlers should be overexcited. The whole country is waiting for the 100 days, and I am likely to see a situation where he fulfills about 10 promises of what he said, but the rest of the 90, they will be very difficult to implement.
Ishmael, I mean, can any government, particularly in this particular contest, be able to deliver within the next even 100 days, forget about the 30 days, without a substantive, government in place? I mean, the cabinet is not even been vetted.
Yeah, but that's why we are saying, he said in 100 days. Now he has come in, he realizes I have actually to do meetings with the former cabinet, and the previous cabinet is not probably keen on implementing his projects. Okay. So it will extend it to 200 days, it will extend to 3 months, I mean to 6 months, but nobody should be cheated, or no one should be deceived that we are going to see magic happening and we are going to see a lot of money in the country,
so
unless we all work.
There should be a lot of expectations, managing expectations of Kenyans.
Yeah, I think managing expectations is very key. And you remember there's one CEO who said that Kenyans are indeed a very peculiar lot. That they expect these magic, they expect miracles. There's a number of them, including high-level legislators give these guys money to convert it into millions over a short space of time. And they love instant coffee or instant tea instead of taking time to brew tea or to brew coffee. I come from Kisii, and if you want to enjoy your tea or coffee, it must be brewed. There's even a brand called Omosike that you brew it to enjoy the coffee.
Oh, and by the way, it's true. In fact, if you want to get the best tea, You have to let it boil for a very long
Yeah,
time.
exactly. But now Kenyans want to instant coffee, abracadabra. And look at what our President Ruto has done the last 30 days. As the head of state, he has invigorated our commercial diplomacy. He has visited 5 countries to promote Kenya as an investment destination and promote our exports. You saw a few days ago flagging T to go to Ghana for the first time. He was in Tanzania the other day. He has graced the launch of Safaricom in Ethiopia, which is a key thing. And then understand is in motion a process to come up with a supplementary budget, where now the plan is going to be infused into the budget. And I think for Kenyans, they shouldn't even wait for 100 days. They should give him 1 year. Because right now he doesn't even have a fully constituted government. However, what must be priority is the issue of land in Kenya. You know, now the president is promoting Kenya as an investment destination, but interactions with investors, both local and international, are raising alarm over land acquisition in Kenya. That you get an international investor or indeed a local investor wants to buy land in Kenya, and they are working closely with the National Land Commission. But now we have some cartels working in cahoots with pseudo-environmentalists who get part from civil society to frustrate the process. And Kenya in the past has lost a number of investment opportunities to Uganda, Tanzania, Rwanda, Burundi, because of these people who frustrate land acquisition. And in my view now, that should be in the priority list, so that if you've got this Nigerian investor who wants to come and do business in Kenya and wants a piece of land, some local part of civil society should not frustrate that process. It happens everywhere, and if you speak to these 2 lawyers on my right in private, they'll tell you that there's a lot of frustration from these kind of investors, and in my view that should be a priority list.
All right. Lastly, as we wind up and start with Dansan, we've seen that the president, over the weekend managed to go to Tanzania, went to Uganda, and most of the conversations that were surrounding this was, enhancing, the bilateral ties between these countries. And, the East African community is quite an important issue here when it comes to the foreign policy that the president has to take. What is your, assessment of how the president is approaching this whole issue within sort of trying to, to integrate the regions, the countries within this particular region, and moving forward as an agenda in his own administration?
On 9th of September, on 9th of August, 2022, there were 2 types of candidates on the ballot. One, President retired Uhuru Kenyatta and Raila Odinga were Chinese candidates on the ballot. Then William Ruto was an American, British, African candidate on the ballot. Why? The policies of William Ruto is going away from China to start the intra-trade within Africa. And that is why he's very key to Ethiopia, he's very key to Uganda, he's very fast heading to Tanzania and enlarging Congo and all these countries, enlarging the trade for Kenyan products to be available to be taken to those countries. 2, he is the first president, after just being elected, to have been given an audience, a dinner with the King of Britain, King Charles. He also got an invite to White House in the US. So that's why I say William Ruto is a president who was on the ballot based on moving away from the East to moving within Africa and looking at the market in the European countries. So the diplomatic angle we are likely to see already, Gachagua, the deputy president, has put it very clearly that the ambassadors are not going to be ambassadors, but they are going to be commercially interested people to look for markets for our country. Agriculture in this country doesn't have where to take the crops or where we take our cash crops. So President William Ruto has taken that policy, and that is why we are going to see a lot of trips. Remember, President retired Uhuru's trips were borrowing trips. Every time Kenya One left Jomo Kenyatta Airport, we knew the president is going to sign her loan. But we are seeing this president is shy on loans. He's going to look for markets for this country. On this, I totally agree with him that within a very short time, the economy of this country is likely to grow in a manner that Kenyans will not be complaining anymore.
Let's hear from Ishmael and then Dismas. I mean,
your views our country is strategic. Our country is strategically placed, and we are actually a country of interest globally for security, for commercial, as a commercial hub, and for tourism and several other things. So I think the steps taken by the head of state to popularize our country is very important, because we must put our best foot forward. I think it's enough to say that we should, popularize our country as a very popular destination for the regional countries.
All right, Dismas, you have the last word.
Yes, and that's a privilege, when I'm seated with my seniors here. Right. You know, President Ruto is behaving like the chief marketing officer for Kenya, reminding all our friends at a bilateral, at a multilateral level that what is available in Kenya. And in my view, this is going to translate to increase the FDI and increase the exports. And you recall a few days ago, he told KTD that now we need to start branding our tea, we need to start branding our coffee. And that's how we'll maximize on all these assets.
Right.
However, we may face a challenge if we do not address that land acquisition issue. So that after marketing Kenya as an investment destination, when investors land here, we should go and receive them at the airport with a red carpet. Make sure that the cost of doing business in Kenya has been lowered, the registration of business, because now we have a very good market. And anybody who is coming to Kenya, is not just doing business in Kenya, is doing business in the entire region. And that's what we must encourage. And in my view, we are on the right trajectory.
On the right trajectory. All right, thank you so much. Dismas Mokua, political risk analyst, Ishmael Nyaribo, lawyer, wakili, and political analyst as well. And of course, Danstan Omari. Thank you so much, wakili and political analyst, for coming in this morning. This is where we wind up on AM Live on NTV, but your world is coming up shortly with Winnie Lubembe. Good morning, Winnie.
Good morning. You look lovely, and of course, great conversation you had today. And today is the International Day of the Girl Child. And I know every time we talk about the girl child, everybody's like, but what happens to the boy child? But really, at the end of the day, there's so many things that affect the girl child. I mean, the boy child equally, but the girl child, of course, faces greater risks. So today we want to understand, why is it that over decades of talking about girl child and their rights and, helping to protect them, why do we still have cases of young girls who do not have access to school? Of course, there's the whole aspect of, rape, and, there's a lot that the girl child actually faces. So today we just want to understand why.
There's a lot
2022, there's a lot to unpack on the conversation. That is what we'll be talking about
but
today.
let's not forget the boy child too, right?
Oh, absolutely not.
Sure
we actually want their inclusion.
Is now endangered.
Endangered?
The boy child is endangered.
Oh, no, you'll have to ask that question. Are they endangered?
Are they endangered?
Thank you so much. Winnie Lubembe will be coming up shortly with that on Your World. My name is Zainab Ismail. Good morning, good day.